What's up, Blaine? How was it?
Oh, my goodness.
It's about George Hamilton, right?
No.
Billy Hamilton of the Cincinnati Reds.
And I've been playing some golf, and I still don't have a kind of tan that George Hamilton has. But
He's the extra crispy.
this is our boy Alexander Hamilton. And, man, and I had seen it in New York. Brenda and I saw it in New York a few months ago. And it's still in Salt Lake City. That first of all, Eccles Theater is unbelievable. And secondly,
It's the most unbelievable thing about the U.
yes. But it's not at the U. It's downtown.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have to give any credit to the university at all.
Okay.
For
Just
this
making
beautiful
sure.
theater, although the Eccles have donated a lot of money to the university, they also donate
Tremendous donation.
to the arts. So, you guys, if you haven't seen Hamilton, it is unbelievable.
I've not seen it. I would like to see it.
and it's a history lesson.
We're taking tickets,
It's a
by
musical.
the way. You can
It's
tweet at Jerome Jordan or Jason.
yeah, no, you guys, even if you don't like musicals, you go to Hamilton, you'll go, wow,
you hear
that
this?
was awesome.
I like musicals.
You don't?
like-
What's your favorite musical?
We'll get into that another time.
He can't even think of one.
Okay. Off the top of his head. Sound of Music, Grease, The Greatest Showman.
Okay, The Greatest Showman's not technically a musical because it's a movie. So it's a screenplay, but it could be adapted to a musical and it would be good.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about not a musical.
This is Musical Sports Nation. Blaine Fowler's on the program. Our question of the day is this. Which BYU sport's more difficult to schedule, football or basketball? What do you think, Blaine?
To me, it's not even close. Football is much more difficult. In basketball, you're in a league, so you have a big portion of your schedule already done. Preseason, everybody's scheduling preseason. With the changes that the selection committee has made in recent years for NCAA tournament, all of a sudden, even the biggest of programs, the NCAA selection committee has their attention. They're going, you better schedule better in the preseason. You better play some quad one away games. And so BYU, I feel like if these programs are listening, and I think they are, that BYU is going to be able to schedule some big-time teams at home. And certainly BYU is in there. We know they just announced not that long ago that they're going to play the Maui Classic. They can play in preseason big-time tournaments against big-time opponents. BYU now has incentive. As we've seen St. Mary's get left out last year, that they know that they have to schedule up. The Zags know that they have to schedule up. So everybody has this mindset in college basketball that they've got to schedule up. So BYU's fine scheduling for basketball. Now, football, that's a different story. As you guys have mentioned, when you're not in a league, it's difficult. And you do it years and years and years in advance, and you have a difficult time scheduling teams that are in leagues late in the season. So BYU's schedule always seems to be front-loaded. Are they ready enough when they don't have a returning starting quarterback to play against the kind of schedule they had last year? Obviously not. And so it's very difficult to balance that schedule out. Now, I like this next year's schedule. We just looked at it. If you were watching on TV, we just looked at that. It's a little more balanced, although it's not balanced home and away.
Not at all. It's the most imbalanced independent.
Right,
schedule
in
BYU had
terms
that
of home and
regard.
away. But in terms of the games they play throughout the season, they have Utah at the very end of the season.
Boise State in
They have
November.
Boise State toward the end. They have Utah State later. So there's a little more balance in terms of degree of difficulty, where there's a couple of teams that they should be able to beat sprinkled in amongst the tough ones, where last year they came out of the gate and it was just like, hey, why don't we play 7 crazy games to start the season? And then by the time we play teams that we should be able to beat, we don't have anybody left because we got 37 guys hurt. So it is a difficult task. I'm glad I'm not Tom Homo. That's a tough one. And I don't know that that gets any easier. You have to have this balance where you schedule at least 5. You have to schedule 5 wins. Then you have to hope that in the other 6 to 7 games, there's another winnable game or 2 to get you bowl eligible, and that's kind of the mindset you have to have. You have to schedule yourself 5 wins. I feel like they've done that next year. I feel like there's 6 wins on the schedule that if they don't, it's going to be because they're really injured again. So they'll be bowl eligible again next year. But it's a tough home and away schedule. It is very difficult to schedule.
Well, in order to prepare for the upcoming schedule, BYU just wrapped up a little over a week ago spring football. What were your takeaways? And we'll talk specifically about the quarterback in a second, but just your overall takeaways on spring for BYU.
Well, for BYU, one of the things that they lacked last year was discipline, where they had too many mistakes on the field. They had assignment errors. We do the show after further review. It seemed like 8-9 weeks into the season, we were pointing out the same errors, containment defensively, same mistakes running routes offensively. And so Kalani recognized that as they analyzed the season, and there was a huge emphasis in spring ball on execution and accountability. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, you will watch standing next to your coach, and that coach might be in your ear for a period of time. And so I was impressed with the way they chose to emphasize that, and then I watched what that, the game plan in terms of the mentality of how they would coach this team this spring and moving into the fall played out on the practice field in spring. I was at almost every practice during spring, and a high level of accountability and discipline. To me, that's BYU's differential advantage. Not they're going to be more athletic. They're not going to be faster than the teams that they play. I think they can be very, very physical, a la Stanford. But Stanford's other differential advantage is they get really smart kids and they out-execute everybody. They out-execute Oregon and USC, even though they don't have the speed that those teams have. To me, that has to be BYU's MO. That's what they have to be. They got away from that last year. I think Kalani is trying to fix that, and that's what I saw in spring ball, and I like it.
Okay, if BYU played today, who's your starting quarterback? Obviously, Tanner Mangum not full go yet.
So we don't know. So we can't even count him until we see where he at. He has the most experience, obviously. You'd love for him to rise to the top and be full go in the fall, but we're not going to count him. We just don't know.
Like today, if it's in a few weeks, he says he's full go.
Yeah, but we'll see. Even when he is full go, how full go means you're cleared. Does that mean he's full speed and he can move around the way he used to move around? That's what we'll wait to see with Tanner. And can he grab the leadership mantle back again? Because when you're not really playing and you're just sparingly being used, that kind of passes on to someone else. I think guys are gonna go, what? Joe Critchlow was the most consistent guy in spring ball. And so if I had to play right now, I feel like I just want to put the guy out there that's going to make the fewest mistakes, because mistakes will kill you at that position. I was really impressed with Zach Wilson. His skill set, his mechanics are really good. But Robbie Bosco and I stood next to each other through a lot of practice. So there's two guys that played that position. We know what it looks like as if we both got out on the field as freshmen. And it looks like this. And if you're watching on the radio, you don't know what I'm doing, but it's just a bunch of people flying around, and you think you're great as a freshman, but you're not. And I think it slows the progression of a player if he has to play and carry a team as a freshman. I would really like, as skilled as he is, for him to be able to watch for at least a year and get some spot playing time and to be developed the way you're supposed to develop quarterbacks. You throw a freshman in there, you have ups and downs, and you risk hurting that freshman's progression. He's too good to do that with. And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? I hope that he's patient enough to understand that the best thing to do is to watch and let somebody else do it, unless he's forced into play.
What questions, if any, were answered for you in spring?
This whole thing about accountability, and I was really curious to see what was going to roll out with the running back position, because that was a big position for me. I feel like they have enough bodies back on defense, especially along the D-line, that they can be really good defensively. Offensively, I knew that the offensive line would take a step forward because they had bodies last year. They were just young, and those guys are bigger and stronger and faster. I think we'll see a big push up front. The talent's a year older, and they're going to be really good up there. Tight ends are healthy, with the exception of Moroni, but I think he will be healthy. So my big question was quarterbacks, which we've talked about, and then at the running back position, can they find an every down back so that they don't tip their hat before the play even happens to the defense by who walks out of the huddle and lines up?
There's some specialists. There's a lot of specialists.
And that's what they had to do that last year by necessity. So a guy comes out and defensively is going, oh, this is the guy that's in the game, so these are the 3 plays that they run with this guy. Oh, this is the outside running guy, so play the edge. Oh, this is the guy that they bring in to catch passes, so it's an 85% chance that they're going to throw. I know that Jeff Grimes is looking for an every down guy, and I feel like Katoa, oh, man, he could be the guy.
Zach Katoa is the every down back in your opinion?
He can be the every down guy.
Is he the only one, or do you think there's more?
I think Squally has developed his catching out of the backfield. There's going to be more depth at that position, and some guys that we didn't think about Zach last year because he was running on the prep team and tearing up BYU's defense on the prep.
He was being redshirted on purpose.
But he can do everything. He can run downhill inside. He has enough speed to get to the edge, and he'll bounce it if you don't contain the edge. He's got really good vision. He can block. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's the kind of guy like Harvey. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's Harvey Unge yet, right? But from a skill set perspective, he's the kind of guy that could be like Harvey or like Curtis Brown, where you play him every down and the defense doesn't have any idea what you're doing based on what running back is in the backfield. Now, that's a nice thing to have, and I know that Jeff would like to have that. We'll see if he can continue to develop through fall. If he can, he's going to be a big difference maker for BYU.
The word we've heard a lot from Jeff Grimes and others is multiple, and with personnel, it'd be nice to be multiple with those guys too. Over the weekend, some announcements from the NCAA regarding some rule changes. You can fair catch a kickoff and get it back like a touchback out to the 25. What do you think of that rule?
Complete rule based on safety, and it, for some teams it doesn't make any difference. I was reading an article from Kirby Smart at Georgia, and he goes, "We just tell our kicker to kick it out of the end zone every time anyhow. So who cares?"
BYU has not had that idea. They've been trying to pin teams.
They have guys.
Right?
Now here's people are like, "Why doesn't BYU kick it out of the end zone?" They have guys that can kick it out of the end zone. They have the last couple years. They certainly can do that. But Ed Lamb's philosophy has been, no, I want a 4.3, 4.5 hang time. I want to land inside the 5-yard line, and I want him to have to return it because I want net kickoff. We want to be in the top 5 in the country.
He doesn't want to give them yards that he doesn't think they're going to get.
He wants them to start at the 15
and
or the
BYU
18.
was good at this. They were top
very
20.
good at it. So this has a bigger impact on BYU than it does on Georgia, a team that said just kick it out of the end zone. So to me, there's going to be a lot of pressure on return guys. I think in practice, you're going to have to be timing things. And every time a kickoff return guy catches the ball, you have to go, that was 4.5. That was 4.2. That one was only 3.8. So the return guy, because he can't look at the guys running down, he has to have a timing mechanism in his head that goes, this is low enough that I can return it, or this is high enough that I have to fair catch it. You have to put smart kids back there now that can return kicks if you're going to return kicks. So there's a lot of pressure on return guys. I think a lot of teams are just going to go to the, forget it then. Let's just kick it out of the end zone every time. And we'll see what Ed Lamb decides to do. Does he make a philosophical change because of the rule change or not? And how much will we see guys fair catching? Certainly, if it's a low kick that's a 3-5 hang time and you catch it at the 1, you want to return that. You got a great chance to get it out to the 30 or 35. That's a 4-5 hang time. You don't want to return it. You're going to be on your 12-yard line. And so a lot of pressure on return guys. It's a rule that's put in to eliminate the most dangerous play in football. So I'm all for it. I mean, I've had boys play, and I've had, like Gavin's had 2 ACLs. One of his ACLs was covering a kick. And so it's the most dangerous play in football, so I'm okay with it. I mean, people go, well, it's not traditional. That's okay with me.
Tradition is not a good reason to do something.
If tradition is a high-risk play, then let's get it out of the game. I'm completely fine with that.
I wonder if we're going to see any situations where someone's attempting to fair catch, guy doesn't even look, barrels into him going for the ball because it's essentially an onside kick, right? Any kickoff past 10 yards.
Right.
So it could get weird at first. We'll see. With
everything, there's going to be time to adjust. And return guys making decisions, it'll be really interesting to see if guys make the right decisions on there. When to fair catch and when not to is going to be a big deal.
And I'm standing at the 26. I can't do that now. Like, I thought it was at the 24.
Right. That little bloop kick.
Yep.
And you're going to train kickers, hey, if we're going to do the bloop kick, let's kick it to the 26.
Now they're just going to go crazy high and then hold guys' arms down so they can't. No,
it changes strategy, but it eliminates the guys running on a full sprint, colliding with one another. Concussions are higher there. Rotational contact injuries are higher there. It is the most. They've looked at it. They've looked at the data. The NCAA looked at the data. That's why they've made changes, and now they're making more changes.
Yeah.
They want to make the game safer for the players, and I'm all for it.
Okay, well, Blaine, we appreciate the time, man. Thangoing
All right, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Bring in the ham
workout this morning.
I'm gonna come back. Oh yeah, I got one in for sure. But I'm gonna come back in, and we're gonna do a whole show on musicals.
A whole show, huh?
Yeah,
what?
we can do it.
Okay.
Why don't we make the show
it'll
a musical?
It'll be how.
But in a BYU sports context.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It'll be all about how musicals and sports
the 2018 schedule.
Go together. Yeah,
which team is what musical?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
It's coming up in
like
June.
All right. I'll start.